The Growth Management Act requires local government actions to not simply be consistent with your adopted comprehensive plan, but actually implement it. There are three basic ways to make your plan come alive, to bring it from vision into reality. These three basic ways are through development regulations, through capital projects, and through a variety of programs. Development regulations are locally adopted legal controls on how land may be used, what dimensional or performance standards apply, and what processes will be used to render permit decisions. Following are several types of development regulations. The most common type of development regulation is a zoning or land use code. Such codes must be consistent with and implement the comprehensive plan. They usually include text, tables, and maps. Traditional zoning codes segregate the entire jurisdiction into a dozen or fewer discrete districts or zones, such as commercial, industrial, or residential of varying densities. Such zoning codes typically specify building height, setbacks, lot coverage by district, and they frequently have tables with lengthy lists of uses that are either permitted in a zone outright or conditionally permitted in a zone. The GMA also permits local governments to adopt innovative development regulations. Examples might be design review requirements or form-based codes. Such innovative codes usually encourage mixing rather than segregating uses within a district. Form-based codes focus more attention on the form and the design details of new development rather than lists of permitted uses or numeric densities by district. Form-based codes and hybrid codes typically include many photographs, sketches, diagrams to illustrate specifically the menu of allowed or required building and site design features. Public works standards specify the size, materials, location, configuration, and performance requirements for streets, sidewalks, drainage, and utility improvements. They set standards for drinking water, utility, and other systems. These standards typically are based on national standards for safety and performance, but sometimes allow for flexibility to reflect local circumstances or preferences. Subdivision regulations enable property to be divided into a smaller number of parcels for purchase or subsequent development. Proposed subdivisions must be consistent with whatever minimum lot size or other development standards apply in the applicable zone or district. Other regulations that will apply and be considered during the subdivision are grading, drainage, tree retention, and critical area requirements. The subdivision layout must show public rights-of-way or streets and easements or alleys needed to access the lots and the utility improvements that will be needed to serve those lots. After the required public review of the proposed subdivision and installation of the required improvements, the subdivision map, or plat map as it's called, is recorded to legally create the new lots, tracts, and streets. Critical area regulations are a type of regulations designed to protect ecosystems, such as wetlands, rivers, lakes, streams, and other wildlife habitat. They also protect people and property from hazards, such as steep slopes, flood zones, or earthquake faults. Regulations set out the steps that must be taken to avoid hazardous areas or to protect sensitive areas, including any appropriate setbacks. Jurisdictions may choose to have a freestanding critical areas ordinance, or CAO, or to include such regulations as a chapter in their zoning or land use code. GMA also requires local governments to adopt transportation levels of service and concurrency regulations to enforce them. These ensure that needed transportation facilities keep pace when development occurs. Communities should also identify other public facilities, such as utilities, which are needed to adequately serve planned growth. If proposed development would drop the transportation system performance below the locally adopted service level, the transportation concurrency requirement would require that the permit be denied, or alternatively, the adopted level of service be adjusted. If other public facility service adequacy is violated, if adequacy cannot be shown, the jurisdiction must either take corrective action to its comprehensive plan or adjust the level of service. A variety of other regulations may be included in the land use code or a zoning code, including design review for buildings or sites, sign controls, parking standards, tree retention requirements, landscaping, park and open space requirements, and low impact stormwater requirements. The second major way to implement your plan is through capital budget decisions. Policies in the capital facilities element of the plan guide decisions about how your community invests public funds in local infrastructure. A capital facilities plan element should include priorities for sewer, water, and storm drainage investments to meet the needs identified in the detailed functional plans for sewer, water, and storm drainage. It should include prioritized transportation projects that reflect comprehensive plan goals, policies, and identify needs, and parks and open space investments that preserve community assets, enhance the quality of life, and meet recreational needs spelled out in the parks and recreation element of the plan. A capital facilities element must balance spending with expected sources of revenue and match projects with the availability of dedicated revenue funds. These priorities should also guide applications for grant funding, as well as decisions about utility rates and impact fees. The third way that local governments can implement the comprehensive plan is through a broad variety of programs. For example, interlocal agreements. Cities and counties are authorized to adopt interlocal agreements, for example, to share joint planning in an area. They could also share development standards in an area. For example, under such an agreement between a city and a county, the county could adopt the city's development standards to apply to development in an adjacent unincorporated urban growth area slated for annexation to that city. In exchange, the city could take on the burden of administering such permits for areas in the unincorporated area that is slated for annexation. In this way, when the area eventually annexes, it will already have facilities that match other improvements and standards already within the city. Another example of an implementation program is a Transfer of Development Rights, or TDR program. TDR enables purchase of the development rights of land in the rural or resource lands area and the subsequent transfer of those development rights to receiving sites in the urban growth area. Counties can use this kind of a program to help preserve rural farm and forest lands, and cities can use it to focus more intense development where services and facilities can more readily accommodate such growth. Tax policies are another form of program that cities and counties can employ to achieve plan objectives. Many cities use property tax exemption programs to encourage multifamily development in specific parts of their community. State law allows local governments to offer developers property tax exemptions for the first 8 to 12 years of a multifamily project, provided that a percentage of the units in the project meet local standards for affordable units. Counties are authorized to use open space property taxation programs to reduce the pressure on landowners to convert rural or agricultural land to more intense uses. Impact fees may be charged to new development to mitigate or offset the impacts of the transportation, parks, schools, or fire department systems. Impact fees can only be charged for facilities identified in the comprehensive plan. The local government may choose to adjust impact fees to meet an identified goal. However, local programs must be consistent with the state laws that govern impact fees. Comprehensive plan policies can also promote volunteer programs, for example, to enhance urban forestry health, food system awareness, or historic heritage. Some plans call for citizen volunteers to help remove invasive species from parks or other public lands, to support farmers markets, or to inventory historic structures. In summary, your jurisdiction has broad flexibility and choice in how you prepare and implement your comprehensive plan. It is up to you to find the right mix of goals, policies, regulations, projects, and programs to put your community on the path to its desired future.